My daughter bullied my son at school with her friends and got suspended, so I grounded my son for causing drama and embarrassing me in front of the principal. Then I let my daughter go to a concert with the same friends who bullied him to blow off steam, but now my wife is furious. I have 2 kids, a daughter, 16, and a son, 14. They've always had a rocky relationship. My daughter is outgoing, popular, into sports, and has a big friend group. My son is quieter, more introverted, prefers reading and online games, and doesn't really hang out with a lot of kids outside of school. They've clashed for years over small things, and I've always tried to stay neutral because I don't believe in choosing sides between my own kids. A few weeks ago, something happened at school that completely blew up in our faces. My daughter and a couple of her friends decided to mess with my son during lunch. From what I was told, it was some kind of TikTok-style prank they recorded, making fun of his clothes and voice in front of a group of students. It spread around their grade fast. I didn't even know about it until the school called us in. We were called to meet the principal, along with the parents of the other girls. Sitting there and hearing about my own kids was honestly humiliating. I'm not going to lie, I felt embarrassed more than anything. I've raised my kids to respect others, and suddenly my daughter was being talked about like some kind of bully, and my son was sitting there looking smug because he'd handled it the right way by going through school channels. It just felt like our private family issues were being aired in front of strangers. In the end, the school suspended my daughter and the other girls involved. They also praised my son for reporting it appropriately and said they were glad he stood up for himself. I didn't say anything then, but inside I was frustrated that this whole thing had escalated to that point. I wish my son had just come to us first so we could have dealt with it quietly, instead of letting the school and all the other parents get involved. When we got home, I grounded both kids. My daughter obviously because what she did was wrong, and my son because I felt like he caused unnecessary drama. I told him he could have handled it within the family instead of embarrassing his sister and, honestly, us, in front of the entire school administration. I know some people will say that's unfair, but in my eyes, they both contributed to the situation spiraling out of control. My wife didn't agree with how I handled it, but she didn't exactly fight me on it either. She just looked upset and said she didn't want to argue in front of the kids. Later, she told me privately that she thought I was being too hard on our son and too lenient with our daughter, but then added she didn't have the energy to deal with all this right now. She's been very hands-off lately and just wants everyone to get along, which I understand, but it leaves me in the position of being the one who has to make the hard calls. A few days after the suspension, my daughter got invited to a concert by the same group of friends who were involved in the bullying. She came to me and said it would mean a lot to her to go, that she'd already faced the consequences, and she just wanted a chance to move on and blow off some steam. I thought about it, and I decided to let her go. My reasoning was that she'd been punished already, and isolating her completely from her social life would just make things worse. I also thought it would show that I was willing to trust her to do better. When my wife found out, she wasn't happy, but didn't really say anything other than, "I think that's a bad idea." She's been distant about the whole thing, which has honestly made me feel like I'm the only one actually trying to parent here. My son, on the other hand, has basically shut down. He barely talks to me now. He comes home, goes straight to his room, and avoids any kind of interaction. If I try to talk to him, he gives short answers, or none at all. I've told him more than once that I'm not the enemy here, but he acts like I betrayed him. I think he's just being dramatic. He got what he wanted, his sister got suspended, but now he's upset that she's not being treated like a criminal for life. I'm frustrated because it feels like I'm the only one actually trying to keep the family from falling apart, and instead, I'm being painted as the bad guy. My wife is upset with me, my son won't speak to me, and my daughter feels like everyone's against her except me. I honestly don't think I did anything wrong. I disciplined both kids. I didn't ignore what my daughter did, but I also didn't reward tattling and public drama. I want them to figure out how to live in the same house without me constantly having to pick a good kid and a bad kid. Now my wife is saying she's furious that I let our daughter go to the concert and that I failed our son. She's acting like I completely betrayed him, which I don't agree with. He's still my son, but I'm not going to treat him like a victim every time his sister messes up. I'm at a point where I feel like no matter what I do, it's wrong. I either take my son's side and ruin my daughter's life socially, or I try to keep things balanced and get labeled the villain. Aita, Update 1. My son still hasn't spoken to me since. I mean it all. He only answers school-related questions through text if absolutely necessary, and otherwise acts like I don't exist. He's been staying at school late every day, apparently helping a teacher with some club, and by the time he gets home, he goes straight to his room. It's like living with a stranger in my own house. I tried to do what I thought was the sensible thing and called a family meeting that weekend. I wanted everyone to just talk it out, clear the air, and at least figure out where we all stood. It was a disaster from start to finish. My son barely sat down before saying he didn't see the point. Halfway through, I was trying to explain why I grounded both of them and why the situation needed to calm down, and he just stood up and walked out. My daughter immediately started crying, saying she's tired of everyone hating her and that she already paid for what she did. My wife didn't say much, just sat there with her arms crossed. I ended up consoling my daughter because she was a mess, and my wife gave me that same blank look she's been giving me lately. Since the suspension ended, things at school haven't exactly gone back to normal either. I got a couple calls from other parents who were upset that I allowed my daughter to go to the concert with the same group of friends involved in the bullying. A few said their kids won't be hanging out with her anymore, which I think is a bit dramatic considering she was punished already. One parent outright told me she was disappointed in the way we handled it. I told her politely that it's none of her business how we discipline our kids, but I won't lie, it annoyed me. My wife's reaction to all this has been strange. She isn't defending our son the way she did at first. It's like she's checked out emotionally. She doesn't argue with me, but she doesn't stand with me either. She started spending her evenings alone, either reading in the bedroom or going on these long walks after dinner. Some nights she doesn't even sit down for meals with us. My son's behavior is frustrating me more than anything. I get that he's upset, but at some point he needs to stop shutting down and actually talk. He's acting like I committed some unforgivable betrayal, when all I did was make a parenting call that he didn't like. He's not being bullied anymore because the school dealt with it, but instead of moving forward, he's holding a grudge against everyone. He refuses to look at his sister, ignores me, and only really interacts with teachers. I tried to talk to him one morning before school, and he literally brushed past me like I wasn't even standing there. Meanwhile, my daughter has been on edge ever since the suspension. She's keeping her head down at school, but she's paranoid that everyone hates her. She's been staying home more, which is unusual for her, and she clings to me more than she used to. I don't think she fully understands the gravity of what she did, but I also don't think isolating her completely is the answer. She's still a teenager, and teenagers screw up. It's starting to feel like everyone in the house is living in their own separate bubble. My wife barely talks to me, my son avoids us entirely, and my daughter just tries to keep me on her side because I'm the only one giving her some kind of stability. I keep trying to keep things together, but the more I do, the more it feels like no one else wants to meet me halfway. Update 2. The first issue started with my daughter skipping detention. She decided to leave school and hang out with the same group of girls involved in the bullying incident. The school called me about it and made it clear they weren't going to tolerate her behavior anymore. I tried to explain that she's learned her lesson and needed space to cool off, but they weren't having it. They told me she'd receive a longer suspension if it happened again. I was embarrassed, but I tried to keep a calm front. Meanwhile, my son started facing more harassment from other kids. Apparently, some students have been calling him a snitch and mocking him for running to the principal instead of handling it himself. He brought this up to me, but I told him to toughen up and not give them the reaction they wanted. I thought that was the best advice I could give at the time, but he just stared at me blankly and walked away. He's barely saying a word to me these days, and when he does, it's out of necessity. What caught me completely off guard was my wife meeting with the school on her own. I found out later that she didn't go to talk about the bullying or support him. She went to talk about possibly sending him to live with her parents for a while so that things could calm down. She told me she thinks he needs a change of environment to stop this endless conflict. I saw it as her trying to push the problem away and essentially giving up on him. I was furious that she went behind my back, and it's been tense ever since. Around the same time, my daughter admitted something to my wife that I hadn't known before. She told her that the bullying was a lot worse than what the school reported. There were fake accounts made to make fun of him, group chats mocking him, and some pretty personal jokes that crossed lines. My wife showed me screenshots she'd gotten, and at first, I thought it was teenagers being dumb and dramatic. I downplayed it. She told me I was refusing to see how serious it was. I didn't agree. I still don't think this should destroy the family dynamic, but she looked at me like she didn't even recognize me anymore. Then extended family got involved. My sister called me and told me flat out that I was failing as a father for not protecting my son. She said I was a coward for sitting back while he got torn apart. My wife didn't defend me during the call. She just sat silently, and honestly that silence stung more than anything else. It felt like she'd already checked out emotionally, like she was no longer on my side. In the last few weeks, my wife has started spending nights away at her sister's place. She says she needs space and time to think. She doesn't argue with me anymore. She doesn't even try to mediate between the kids. It's like she's emotionally detached from the entire household. We're still under the same roof, but it doesn't feel like it. The atmosphere is tense and quiet, and I feel like I'm the only one still trying to keep some kind of order here. I know people think I'm handling this wrong, but I've been trying to stop the house from completely falling apart. I don't think sending my son away is the answer, but that seems to be the direction my wife is leaning toward. I thought we were supposed to present a united front, and now it feels like I'm standing alone while everyone either blames me or pulls away. I didn't expect things to spiral like this. I figured it would blow over eventually if everyone just cooled down. Instead, it's like every decision I make pushes someone else further away. Update 3. A few weeks ago, my wife admitted she was considering leaving. Not just the marriage, but everything. She said she felt trapped in a toxic environment, constantly stuck between two kids who can't get along and a husband who refuses to see the bigger picture. She said she was tired of playing referee. Hearing that out loud hit me in a strange way. I knew she'd been distant, but I didn't think she was actually close to walking away. I didn't want to sit around waiting for her to make that decision, so I filed for divorce before she could. I didn't make a big scene about it. I saw it as taking control of a situation that was already falling apart. If she was going to abandon the family, I wasn't going to let her paint herself as the one who got pushed away. I've been the one trying to keep things together, and I wasn't about to let her leave me with the mess and act like I drove her out. During the initial custody discussions, my daughter said she wanted to stay with me. She told the mediator that she feels safer with me and that at least she knows where she stands in this house. It didn't surprise me. Despite everything, our relationship has stayed steady. I've been clear with her about expectations, and even with all the issues at school, I think she respects that consistency. We've had our conflicts, but she hasn't pulled away from me the way my son has. My son, on the other hand, barely engages with either of us anymore. He's polite but cold. When asked about where he wants to live, he said he wasn't sure. He didn't show much reaction to the divorce either, just nodded like it was another problem he couldn't be bothered to get involved in. My wife hasn't been pushing for full custody either. From what I can tell, she's still unsure of what she wants. She's talked about needing a fresh start, maybe moving closer to her family. It's like she's deciding whether she wants to restart her life with or without either of the kids. The school has become more aggressive in how they're handling my daughter's behavior. They've warned me that if there's another incident, they're going to involve legal authorities or escalate it to the district. I tried to talk to them and keep things calm, but it's obvious they've lost patience. I don't think they believe I'm taking the situation seriously, which isn't fair. I've been trying to manage a crumbling household while also dealing with them breathing down my neck. Friends and extended family have started to distance themselves too. A few people have outright told me they think the way I handled the bullying situation was unacceptable. Some don't want their kids around my daughter anymore. I've heard through the grapevine that my wife's family has been talking behind my back, saying I pushed her away. It's frustrating because nobody actually sees what's going on inside this house. They just make judgments based on bits and pieces. At this point, it feels like I'm the only one still trying to keep things structured. My wife has mentally checked out, my son is emotionally detached, and my daughter is the only one who hasn't pulled away, even if her behavior has caused a lot of issues. Filing for divorce wasn't something I planned months ago, but the more I look at how things are unraveling, the more convinced I am that I made the right call. Final update. It's been several months since everything went down, and honestly, I'm surprised at how things ended up. It's not the picture-perfect outcome I imagined, but it's also not a total disaster either. The divorce has been finalized, custody arrangements are settled, and everyone seems to have moved on in their own way. I figured it's time to give the last update because a lot of people were asking what happened with my kids, the marriage, and how things turned out. After filing for divorce, things stayed tense for a while. My ex didn't fight me aggressively in court, which I think shocked a lot of people, including me. She didn't demand the house. She didn't try to drag things out. For a long time, she seemed unsure of what she even wanted. There were days where it looked like she was going to walk away from everything completely. She admitted more than once that she was tired of the constant tension, the school problems, and being stuck between two kids who couldn't stand each other. It wasn't some explosive dramatic ending. It was more like watching someone quietly pack up their life piece by piece. The kids were given a choice about where they wanted to live. At first, my daughter said she wanted to stay with me, which didn't surprise me at all. She's always felt like she has a clearer place in my home, and despite the issues at school, Our dynamic hasn't really changed. She prefers structure, she likes knowing what the rules are, and honestly, she gets along with me better than she does with her mom. I've always been consistent with her, and even when she messes up, she knows exactly what to expect. So her choosing to stay wasn't really something that caused arguments. My ex didn't fight that decision either. She almost looked relieved that at least one child made a clear choice early on. My son was different. He didn't give anyone a straight answer for weeks. He didn't want to talk to me much, and he didn't seem eager to talk to her either. He kept to himself, stayed longer at school, spent time with teachers or friends instead of coming home. I didn't pressure him too much because I figured he'd eventually speak up, and honestly, I assumed he'd stay with me. Not because I thought we were close, we clearly weren't, but because my ex had been so distant and indecisive that it didn't seem like she was going to step up for him in any real way. For a while, I thought he might even end up with extended family because she didn't seem sure of anything. But right before everything was finalized, something changed. My ex started getting more involved with him, out of nowhere. She began meeting with his teachers, talking to extended family, and making arrangements to move closer to her relatives. I think part of it came from guilt, and part of it was other people pushing her to stop sitting on the fence. She eventually told the court that she wanted full custody of him, but only if that was what he wanted. And it turned out, that was what he wanted. He told them he wanted to live with her. It wasn't dramatic. There wasn't a big confrontation. It was just said plainly, like a decision he'd quietly made after months of staying silent. I won't lie and say that didn't sting. I didn't beg him to reconsider or make a scene about it, but it did hit me. After everything, after all the chaos and how much I tried to keep things from spiraling, he chose her. And not even the version of her who was actively fighting for him from the start, but the version who was half out the door for most of it. But at the end of the day, he made his choice, and I respected it. He moved in with her a few weeks before the divorce was officially finalized. My daughter stayed with me full-time. She transferred to a different school after the school made it clear they weren't going to tolerate any more issues. At her new school, she's managed to rebuild her social life without all the drama from before. She's still close with some of the same friends, but the group isn't as intense as it used to be. She's actually doing pretty well now. She's more focused, less wrapped up in trying to maintain some sort of status. I think the move helped her reset. She hasn't had any major disciplinary problems since then, and for the most part, our day-to-day life is stable. My ex moved a few hours away with my son. They keep in touch with me, but it's not a constant thing. It's mainly updates about school, holidays, that sort of thing. My son has adjusted well over there. From what I hear, he's doing better academically, and socially he seems to have found his own group. They've got a different environment, a different support system, and I think that suits him. He seems more comfortable with her side of the family than he ever did in our house. I don't take it personally, even if sometimes it feels like he completely detached from me the moment he left. My ex and I are civil but not close. We communicate for the sake of the kids, but that's it. She's made it clear she's focused on rebuilding her life, and I'm fine with that. The divorce didn't involve any ugly legal battles, and we both walked away with what we needed to start over. I've got the house and my daughter. She's got custody of our son. We split financial responsibilities accordingly. It's straightforward. As for me, life is quieter now. It's just me and my daughter most of the time. She's kept a fairly steady routine, and I think the stability has been good for both of us. I've had to adjust to the idea that this is what things look like now. One child here, one child there, separate lives that only cross over during certain holidays or phone calls. It's not what I pictured years ago, but it's what we have. I try to focus on what I can control. I still believe I did what I thought was right to keep the family from completely falling apart, even if others don't agree with my choices. I know plenty of people think I mishandled things. Maybe they're right, maybe they're not. I can live with that. My relationship with my daughter hasn't really been strained by any of this. She's always leaned on me more. And I think in her eyes, nothing has really changed besides her brother living somewhere else. We get along. She's growing up, becoming more independent, but the foundation between us is still there. My relationship with my son is polite but distant. He texts occasionally, usually short updates, sometimes a thank you for something I sent. There's no hostility, just a gap that neither of us has tried too hard to bridge.